As a way of centering us for our time, I want to share with you Psalms 126, and I'll be using the Common English Bible translation. When the Lord changed Zion's circumstance for the better, it was like we had been dreaming. Our mouths were suddenly filled with laughter, and our tongues were filled with joyful shouts. It was even said at the time among the nations, "The Lord has done great things for them." Yes, the Lord has done great things for us, and we are overjoyed. Lord, change our circumstances for the better, like dry streams in a desert waste. Let those who plant with tears reap the harvest with joyful shouts. Let those who go out crying and carrying their seed come home with joyful shouts, carrying bales of grain. Amen. I want to welcome you to Hobson UMC on YouTube. I am VHD Jr. I am the lead pastor here at Hobson, and I am in for my weekly conversation with my son, Trey, where we talk about the upcoming lectionary passage that I have been working on for a few days to deliver a message on Sunday, and I come and talk with him and try to get some type of context of what's going on within the context of the community, the church, and just with us, so that it might serve as a kind of an inspiration and help frame the message and steer me in that path. After you have gone through these stories many times, it is helpful to just kind of look at it and to bring it into the context of what's going on in our lives. I am deeply appreciative of those of you who are listening, and those of you who tune in and look forward to listening to us on a weekly basis, and who then send me a message about something that we said. Truly am honored when you say that we said something that caused you to look at the scripture in a different way, or something that might have brought you some comfort in a time. So we truly appreciate your response, and we like it when you say, and there have been a couple of times when people have disagreed, and that is always that too is helpful because it helps us to grow and to because this is not just about us, it is about you, and so we wanted what we're talking about to be relevant to what's going on in your life. I want to take this opportunity not only to thank you for listening, but for those of you who continue to support the ministry here at Hobson with your not only with your time, but with your gifts. And we just want you to know that you are very much a part of who we are, and you help us to be the kind of intentional, inclusive congregation that we want to do. So once again, thank you for tuning in, and hope you enjoy the recording this week. We at Hobson, we believe in prayer, and whether we are having a fellowship time or in worship, we like to gather our joys and our concerns and share them with one another, because we believe it's important for us to be in prayer for one another, to, in particular, to celebrate those things where we know that God is working in our lives, and to offer ourselves up as being instruments of God's grace to answer prayers for those who may be going through some difficult and challenging time. And in this time, in particular, being prayerful is important. Just before sat down for this recording, got a text message from someone of whom their child is traveling with a group of other students, and it is looks like they're going to be driving through a storm, and the storm is coming through the south this evening. And so they asked for prayers, and so stopped and offer up prayers, and we'll continue to be in prayer until we hear that they have arrived there safely. So if you have prayers that you want us to be in prayer for, please let me know. Send me a text message. Hit me up on Facebook. Call me, however it is. Just let us know so that we might be in prayer for you. A part of the things that we like to celebrate is that we like to celebrate birthdays and do our birthday shout outs. On Sundays, we sing, and we sometimes we have to, look for someone and to go through the list, and that's kind of part of where we started this, is so that we would make sure that we offered up prayers not only for those who had birthdays on that day, but who would have birthdays during the week. This week, I want to send birthday shout outs to a person who for many years I used to label as my favorite member. I want to lift up Kimberly Miller, Sherry Jones, Beth Richardson, Herschel Walker. I generally see Herschel every other Monday. But I want to send him a birthday shout out. Kenyatta Tidwell, Lovey Keller, Kenneth Askew, Vicki Crawley, Tim Bias, Linda Cooksey, Pam Cannon, Catherine B. Miller, a friend from my youth, a longtime friend, Libby Lawson, Vera Finney, Sean Sanders, Melanie Campbell Moorhead, a great pastor and friend, Darrell Drumright, Reginald Green, the maestro himself, and Carol Cresswell. This week, I want to ask that you be in prayer for LaWanna Coleman Johnson. She's still dealing with some health issues. She's got shingles, but this week will be the anniversary of her mother's birthday, and it'll be the first birthday since she passed. And so we just want to make sure that we be in prayer for her, and also ask that you be in prayer for Michelle Ladd. This week will be the 4th anniversary of Don, her husband Don Ladd, who was a great friend of mine and of Hobson, and just want to remember them in that time. We will continue to be in prayer for the war that is taking place in Ukraine, and for all of for the millions of people of whom who are refugees, who have lost family members, who are had to leave home. And so we're just praying for that conflict. And we're also praying for the violence that is taking place within our city. There has not been a day that I have not, in recent weeks, that have not turned on the television and heard of some attack or some killing of people. And so we just ask for you to be in prayer for God's peace to be in the midst of us. And when we say that we are in prayer, we're also saying to God that we want to use us as instruments of God's grace in this time. And surely God needs people who are willing to be ambassadors of reconciliation at this time. So be in prayer, and that's asked that you continue to be in prayer for us as a congregation, and we will continue to be in prayer for you. Amen. The reading that we have for this week, which is the 5th Sunday in Lent, comes from John's Gospel, the 12th chapter, verses 1 through 8, and I will be using the Common English Bible translation. 6 days before Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, home of Lazarus, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Lazarus and his sisters hosted a dinner for him. Martha served, and Lazarus among those who joined him at the table. Then Mary took an extraordinary amount, almost 3/4 of a pound, of very expensive perfume made of pure nard. She anointed Jesus' feet with it, then wiped his feet dry with her hair. The house was filled with the aroma of the perfume. Judas, one of his disciples, the one who was about to betray him, complained, This perfume was worth a year's wages. Why wasn't it sold and the money given to the poor? He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. He carried the money bag and would take what was in it. Then Jesus said, "Leave her alone. This perfume was to be used in the preparation for my burial, and this is how she used it. You will always have the poor among you, but you won't always have me." This is the word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God. Well, Trey, we are back for this week, and we're about at the end of the season of Lent. We'll have the fifth Sunday, then of course next Sunday will be Palm Sunday, and then we'll go into Holy Week. But we're close, and as this passage says, this is 6 days before the Passover. Jesus is working his way, and he is on his way to Jerusalem, and as we say, the next week we will be looking at his entry into Jerusalem and all of the activities around what happens then. This has become, over the years, has become one of my favorite stories. It is one of whom I look forward to visiting when it comes around in the lectionary pass. And even when it's not a preaching time for this, I will often visit this because it is one of where it allows both to be able to use my imagination and to place myself within the story as if I was one who was there. And it gives us, and we have just enough information to where we have some context and we don't go too far, or I don't go too far astray, while at the same time being able to imagine within myself of what it must have been like on that particular night that the writer John lets us know about. It lets us know it's in Bethany, and if you follow the story of Jesus, you know that Bethany was a place that he enjoyed, and he particularly enjoyed being at the home of Lazarus there with his two sisters, Martha and Mary. We don't know how many times he visited that home, but I like to think that whenever he was in the area, and particularly in the time that he was in ministry and was going to Jerusalem for Passover, for other events, I don't believe that he ever went in that area and he did not stop by their house and enjoyed and sat down and had a good time. I don't know what it is that brought him into that relationship. I don't know whether it was a long-standing relationship, whether he knew them maybe before he actually went into ministry. I don't know how they were introduced, but you just always get a sense of joy that whenever it mentions that he is with them, that he had a good time. I just I see Martha as being one we have in other stories where she's kind of the workaholic and she's also doing things, but I just imagine that Martha was a great cook, and whenever Jesus came to town, I mean, she cooked his favorite meal, and he enjoyed. He was kind of, we have. I was talking we were talking about chitlins. Well, I know chitlins wasn't on the menu as far as Jesus was concerned because he didn't eat pork. But we were talking about how everybody says, I only eat my mama's chitlins, but whatever was the dish that Mary fixed, I just know that Jesus just enjoyed being there. And it's amazing that in the stories and the accounts, and we know that Lazarus was, in fact, a dear friend of Jesus. We never hear anything about Lazarus other than we do hear that he got sick, and we hear that part, but we never hear his voice in his conversation. But I just think that whenever he was there, they would sit around and they would talk about the events of the day. Maybe whatever was the equivalent to March Madness back then, they probably sat down and talked about their picks and probably on the visit. I am sure that when Lazarus picked St. Peter's, that Jesus had a few responses about that, but probably appeared on the bracket. I just think that they just talked about, maybe the things that were going on in Jerusalem and the things that were going on in their lives. And it was just an opportunity just to be able to share with another and the perspective. We know that from other stories, and we hear of Mary's attentiveness always to Jesus and the sitting and listening. And that even at moments and times when Jesus was teaching them, that when it was a time and a space that might have been reserved for just men, Mary put herself in the middle of that, and it shows the inclusiveness of Jesus to that invited. I mean, a lot of times we don't think about the women of whom was an essential part of the ministry for Jesus, and truly the relationship that he had with Mary was a special one. And so we have him on this occasion. As we know, he's on his way. But just a few days before this event, they had reached out to Jesus. They had sent a message to him that Lazarus was sick, and they sent for him to come. By the time that, and in fact, Jesus kind of delayed going to them, and by the time that he had gotten to Bethany, Lazarus had died. Even in the midst of death and the fact that, Jesus did not show up in time, when they go out to see him, they go out and say, if you had been here, then this wouldn't have happened. They still had faith, but they still believed in that moment of the relationship, and that whatever the reason and whatever and whyever Jesus had delayed in that was all right because of the love that they had. And we know that as this passage says, if you only read this passage, you did not know the story. It's hard for me to think of anybody that doesn't know the story of the raising of Lazarus, but he does raise Lazarus, and this takes place a few days after that. I think what's significant for us as we look at this story in this time, and through the lens of what's going on today, that while we may have speculated in the past what the conversation was about, I am sure and I am confident that the conversation this time when he was there centered around the fact that after Jesus had raised Lazarus from the dead, the powers to be, both from within the religion, within the church, and the secular and the political powers of the day, had made the determination that they had to kill Jesus. That this raising and that the following that would soon be with him, that they had to eliminate him. And so they were sending out, and I am sure that they had wanted posters all over, and all kinds of rewards were going out to just let us know where he is, because as soon as we find out, and we even hear in this story that Judas, one of those who was with him, would be ultimately would be the one who would collect the money and would turn him in. But that was a part of the conversation that was going on. There have been even some people who were saying that the actions and took place were probably what sparked Judas's greed for having money, and the fact that his statement that he makes later in this may have been some of the motivation that was going on. But surely in that conversation that day was talking about Jesus going to Jerusalem and knowing ultimately what would happen once he gets there. And I am sure that there were those of whom, as Jesus says, I'm going, but before I go, I got to stop by there. That there were probably still those who were in his gathering, who were trying to talk him out of it, who wanted him to go in another direction. And yet, while they wanted that, Jesus knew what ultimately he had to do, and so it became an opportunity for him to say goodbye to some people and to say goodbye to his dear friends. They're all gathered around the table, and I do imagine that in that gathering around the table, or at least the 12 and probably some others. So that lets us know that Lazarus probably had a big house. That we don't know what he does or any of those things, but it certainly was a place of where it was where they were comfortable and they were gathered around and they were talking. And in the midst of the conversation, we hear that John tells us that Mary. Now, it appears in all the story of Jesus' feet being anointed with oil appears in all of them, but it is John that lets us know that it is Mary and lets us know a context. In other gospel, in Luke, it takes place a lot earlier in his ministry, but I am one of those that tends to believe that this is it. And she comes, and and I just see her interrupting the meeting and beginning to do. And I think it's interesting, as I was reading it again for this week, that no one, or at least John does not share with us, that anyone was outraged by the act that she was doing. That in itself just would have been an outlandish act for a single woman to have come and to have put herself in that position, to have put the oil upon his feet, and then to dry it with her hair. That would have been a scandalous act. But nobody speaks to the scandal of the moment. That the only voice that we hear that is the voice of opposition is when Judas says, look, stop her, she's wasting this stuff, and we could have taken this and sold it and given the money to the poor. Now, John is real clear in saying that, that was probably not Judas's intention of giving the money to the poor, because John says, he had the money, he wanted to steal it. And maybe he was outraged that, this was money he could have had and he could have stole. And because of that, it may have been a motive for him that, I'm going to get some money from somewhere because I'm going to collect me some money for turning him in. But one of the things that kind of stood out to me as I was reading it this particular time is that we've always kind of and listening when I've heard other people preaching and probably even in my own preaching, have always thought that the oil belonged to Lazarus and to his sisters. But as I was reading it, Jesus says that this was supposed to be used for my burial, which would tend to maybe suggest to me that maybe he had brought it, that he had carried it, already knowing what he's going to do and making it available, and that when it was there, that Mary saw it, and that in that moment, that maybe she felt that if I could just express my love to him and the need of having him present, that maybe it will change his mind, and that he will say that, well, I don't have this and I need to stay, and this wonderful act will cause him to change his mind. But I'd like, that when she does it, that when she's doing it, and so even if you think that she has gotten it, it's not her oil. It's not for her to be able to do with what she wants to do with it, but she does it anyway. That Jesus says to not only, and I think, we kind of think that maybe he was speaking to Judas, but I think he was speaking to everybody, because at this moment, because Judas has raised this concern, that maybe others will begin to say, oh, look, you didn't have any right doing that. That Jesus says to the people, leave her alone. That in this moment, this boldness and the courage that it took for her to express her love for Jesus, Jesus says to them, leave her alone. It just resonated with me, because in this time where we have so many people who are hurting, so many people are suffering, so many people who are just find themselves in positions of where they may ultimately lose their lives, and certainly the quality of life that they need for their daily living does not exist. That here she was willing to express her love in such an extravagant way and taking such extraordinary risks to be able to do that, that I ask myself, in this season, am I one who is willing to express that kind of extravagant love to Jesus in the moment? In particular, when I understand that Jesus says to us that when you do it for the least of these, that you do it for me. So that when am I taking my important jar, my expensive jar that I have set aside for my use? When am I willing to share that for Jesus, or for those of whom stand in the need, particularly in a need of where they need to know? I just believe that, there were so many people who were turning their backs. We know there are people who were getting ready to betray him and turn away. That Jesus needed that moment, needing to know that there was somebody who loved him to the point to take some extraordinary risks in that time. So. So I feel pretty confident that this week that I'm going to focus in on that line, leave her alone, and I just have to wonder and ask the question: is Jesus ever saying to somebody, leave us alone? because what we're doing it for Him. Amen. Well, Trey, how things going?
Things are going pretty good. No complaints over here.
No complaints over here. Well, you had you were a little stopped up for a couple of days. How's that going?
I think it's getting better. It's at night where I get a little congested and a little stopped up, and so once I get going in the morning and drink some water and stuff, it usually subsides a little bit. But yeah, man, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. You know, trying to last couple of nights got caught up in the games or something. You know, they just kind of kept me throwing my little sleeping pattern off. But other than that, I'm doing all right. Trying to catch up and wanna I haven't pushed you on it, but I figured I would wait till tonight.
What's that?
But I was. I'm a big Godfather, fan. I like the Godfather, and so I really wasn't that interested in the Academy Awards because I hadn't seen any of the things that were on there. I don't think I've been to a movie, since COVID. But they were advertising they were going to bring the Godfather, and it was 50 years, and do a little tribute to that. Which wasn't worth me staying up to see. But the fact that I was trying to see it meant that I was kind of going in and out, and I got to see what it seems to be that everybody is talking about, and that is Chris Rock's joke, and then ultimately the response. Now, I was looking at it when he came out, and I heard the joke, and it just kind of flew over me because, I had not, it did not register to me. Sure. I thought he was talking about, a movie or something that she had done. I did not know that he was referring to Demi Moore and what he had done.
Right.
But it kind of showed everybody, and kind of showed, Will Smith. And then, I, kind of looked down, and I really didn't kind of pay any attention to all of a sudden, it's no sound, and I kind of looked up. And, I guess that's the reason, they have, 30-second delay. And Will Smith just goes up there and, smacks him. So initially, I'm thinking, this is a joke. Yeah. That this is a setup, that they had kind of arranged that, and particularly because of how he just kind of played it off, when he came in, because when the sound came back on. So immediately, I kind of put on Facebook, what happened? Tell somebody, and it shows also with social media. Right. I mean, within 2 minutes, people were sending me, TikTok and sending me video from Japan and China, all kind of stuff of what's going on. And so I just wanted to, kind of to get your thoughts on it before I share, my thoughts on what happened.
Yeah. Well, I was watching some of the Oscars, and like you, I hadn't seen a lot of those movies that received awards, except for Encanto, because Mason has definitely seen Encanto. And when Megan Thee Stallion came out and had a part on We Don't Talk About Bruno, it just kind of threw me off because she's not in the movie. She doesn't have a part in the movie. Right. So I just kind of cut it off. And I didn't know until the next morning that all of this had happened. Oh, okay. So I wasn't aware until the next. So when I saw it, I just kind of processed things the way that they looked. Mm-hmm. And and really paid attention to how people had commentary about what was going on.
Yeah.
Now, here's my stance.
Okay.
I think Will Smith put folks on notice. It's like, all right, you can say something about my wife in my presence if you want to. After that, you have been warned. Now, for being a man and having a significant other and having an opinion about checking somebody if I feel like they are being disrespectful, I think that's a real thing. Now, I don't think he should have put his hands on Chris Rock,
Right.
but also I think Chris Rock should have kept any joke or any kind of commentary strictly about Will Smith. And when you brought his wife into it, it's like, what purpose did that serve? This is Will Smith's night. This is, he was...
At that point, because he hadn't won at that point.
Right. So, but he was the one that was nominated.
Right, yeah.
Right, okay. So, for him to make a joke about his wife in that moment, I thought was very inappropriate.
Yeah.
He could have made a joke about any of the bad things that Will Smith has done in his career and could have got the same amount of laughs, right?
Okay.
Now
that's you're offering something different. Okay. Yeah.
Right. So even with that, I don't have a problem with it. It wasn't like
No problem with what?
him walking up on stage and smacking the man.
Oh, okay.
And here's why. It wasn't like Will Smith caught him in a way that was like he hit him from behind or he grabbed him after the fact and he walked right up to the man's face and hit him. So whether you think that that's wrong or not, I don't see the problem with people having an opinion about what Will Smith did or didn't do. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the way he chose to show his displeasure. And let me put it to you like this. Mm-hmm. If you and mama had been out somewhere and somebody had said something slick to mama, it's your job to check him. It's your job to say, hey, man, you are inappropriate. You are being inappropriate in this moment. And I don't doubt for a second that you wouldn't say something to somebody who was disrespectful to mama.
Okay. Now where I'm going to differ with you to some degree is that and I intentionally for the last couple of days have looked at some stuff that Will Smith did. Appeared in some Bel Airs and some other things that he was on, and Chris Rock. And I think of comedians, and I think of myself of going to see Lavelle Crawford. Love Lavelle Crawford. Go to see George Wallace. Love George Wallace. And people love to go and sit close so that the people will come out and will say something, I remember going to Zany's and George Wallace, said, do I have any preachers in the house? And so, of course, somebody points and say, oh, yeah, he's a preacher, and so I stand up, and then he just goes on and just talking while I'm standing up. He don't say anything. Then he turns around and says, now you see how that shit feels when when y'all do that kind of stuff, Well, he kind of, everybody's laughing, everybody's kind of pointing there kind of stuff, that there are some people in the context of a joke. So from a joke standpoint, now I do think that when you are, in particular in that context, Chris Rock had a responsibility to do his homework. I just think it just came. He did not know that the reason she had a short haircut was for because of a health thing, and But if you're going to use somebody, then you're able to put it in the context. If she had not had a medical, then people probably would have said. But now, where I kind of struggle with what Will Smith did is one, Chris shot words. Yeah, I probably would have gone in. Well, first of all, Will initially laughed like everybody else.
Man, that's what you saw.
That's what I saw.
Right.
But it wasn't until he looked at his wife, and then his wife wasn't smiling.
Exactly.
That then he said, "Oh no, I got to do something."
Exactly. Any man.
But I would have gone after him in the same context that he had done. I would have walked up there and I would have gotten the mic and I would have given him a warning and would have said, "You do not know what you are talking about. Don't make my wife out of some joke. You go in this day and time where we've got black women going through stuff, for you to come and to get a laugh and to use a trick shot." I think, if any, and I would have gone after where we ultimately think that people go after. I'd have gone after his money. If anybody ever uses you again, if the Academy ever invites you again, they should never do it because of your disrespect for this moment. But to go and to put your hands on and to think that somehow, and then I think he only made it worse. Because then when he goes up and he's talking about, "I'm defending and I'm doing all that," the one person he never addressed in all of it. You see, for me, it became about Chris, you disrespected me because you talked about, don't you talk about my wife out of your mouth. It became about him, and it was not about her.
It was about Will, though. That whole night was about Will. Didn't have nothing to do with Jada. He was disrespected.
But no, the disrespect was toward her.
They won. If it's the same applies. If somebody disrespect Brittany, they disrespected me. Period.
But he never addressed her.
He said, "Keep my wife's name out your motherfucking mouth."
But
that's what he said.
But when he got up there and he started going through all this other stuff, he never addressed her. He never said, "Baby, I'm sorry this happened. I'm defending Serena, and I'm defending the people in the movie. I'm doing the stuff." He never made it about her. And so his response should have only been, in my opinion,
right,
if it disrespected her. If it was only about him, then when I go back and I see him in Bel Air, he cracking jokes on Carlton,
you talking about the Fresh Prince of Bel Air?
Yeah. He's cracking jokes on his thing. I saw some things where he was on some television, where he was on Johnny Carson. He cracking the other one, the guy got a beard now. He's cracking jokes on them. He's going and taking punchlines and pulling some things out and cracking jokes on them. And we don't know how hurtful it might have been in those situations.
Sure.
And so when that becomes a part of it. Now, so are we saying now that anybody that cracks a joke?
Nah. I don't think he's setting a precedent for everybody. I don't think that. I don't think that at all.
He gets the president.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
If I go in,
okay.
If I go in and I'm sitting in Zany's and the comedian comes out and says, "Hey, bro, ain't you got no barbers in Nashville? Can't you get your hair cut?" Now, everybody might laugh, including my son might laugh. "Oh, yeah, you ain't got no, but it might hurt me.
Sure.
So do I get to go up there and say, "You know what?
If
keep my hair out your..."
Well, I mean,
and smack him?
No, I mean, if that's the way that you want to address things, and I'm not saying that Will Smith was right. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that Will Smith was justified in his approach. I'm just saying that any man that has a wife, that has a significant other, if you don't say anything, if you don't do anything, then you're not worth your salt as a man.
Okay, and so that's what I'm not. And so I'm not saying that he shouldn't, because what I said was, I'd have walked up there.
Oh yeah, it would have been,
and I would have gotten him where I think ultimately it would have hurt.
Sure,
I would have said to the Academy, "You all keep condoning this kind of stuff. This is disrespectful." And because it was not disrespectful, because it's all right for me to joke about you, but you can't joke about something that's mine. I don't play that. If it's not good for the goose, then it's not good for the goose.
And what makes it even more a problem for me is that Chris Rock had and published and produced a movie about black women's good hair.
As I say,
come on. It's like you did and made money off of that same story about how black women are so sensitive and have to go through so much about how they have to, change their way they wear their hair and get perms just to fit in a society. And the punchline for a joke only thing he should have done was read the damn cue cards, said these are the nominees for this category, and then presented him with the award and walked the hell off the stage.
But when you gas him up to do that, this wasn't the first time. I mean, they said came back. He's had some punchline against her in 2016.
Right.
And so
here's the thing. You don't know if Will Smith woke up that day and said, "You know what? The next motherfucker who got something to say, I'm gonna smack him right in the mouth." You don't know what triggered Will Smith that day. You don't know what he was going through that day.
Well, we need to hear.
Yeah.
We need to hear. But whatever the trigger was.
The next. I'm sorry.
But whatever the trigger was, it did not mean that he should go up there and to strike this man. Because one, then it pulls into all of the stereotypes.
Sure.
All of the things that we say about us as black men, that how we gonna resolve the issue is always by physical contact. And then
pish posh. I'm not one to sit here and allow you or anybody else to say that one black man's action against another black man's action is kind of the parallel for all black men.
No. But what it will say is, and this becomes for me, if our language and our conversation says he did what he was supposed to do, and that he was all right in doing that, then it does say that how are you then going to say to Mason, who said they disrespected me, so I hit him. And you got to say to Mason, well, wait a minute, Mason, you got to figure out what is the appropriate response. And sure. I just don't think if they had been at the party later and they stayed around and he went up to him and he said, man, I am tired of you disrespecting me. I am tired. But in that moment, in that context, I just think that he should have had a little bit more control, and then in his response, he should have been better equipped. Well, no, I think it still should have been, for me, that you talked about with Gail. It would have been based upon how she felt my need to respond, not because of how they did it to me. Right. And
okay, sure.
And he never consoled her. He didn't, when he got up there, I'm defending all of these other people. Am I defending? He didn't even thank her for the support that she had given him for him to make he acknowledged everybody and then made a joke. I hope y'all invite me back. Well, okay. Oh, okay. Well, man, that I'm just saying that it got everybody talking.
Yeah, sure. And it got 18 minutes on your show.
Oh,
so
right.
no. But what I'm saying,
we were shut it down.
but what I'm saying, and like you said in the beginning, that it still could be scripted. They still could have planned that, and I think I think a lot of this, whether it's good publicity or bad publicity, it's still something that each one of them, each Jada Pinkett, Will Smith, and Chris Rock can use in order to make bukus of money.
Oh well, yeah, because they said today that that he had Chris Rock has a show in Boston.
Right.
He sold more tickets today than he had sold for the previous month, and that people were paying tickets that sold for $47 were being bought on the black market for $6,000.
Right.
You know, and so they're there.
Yeah.
And it's just it's just concerning for me that when I look at what some of the attacks and the way of people are going after our Supreme Court, Justice Jackson, how they just ask her some really ignorant and insulting kind of questions, that in this day and time, how we deal with our response to that, and then what becomes our expectations. It will be interesting to see how moving forward. I mean, because they invite Chris Rock. They invite.
I mean, he's hosted the Oscars.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have people that they bring in who will say those kind of things.
Yeah.
And so you now gotta.
It's funny till it's not funny.
Until it's you, and that's why I say, you say, I think it was funny till he looked
at his wife,
and
she's like,
and it's like, oh no,
I got to ride home with her.
Oh no, I'm getting ready to be
in trouble. And this is my night. Let me do something.
I'm going,
And so he didn't process it right. He didn't respond right.
And then after he had the thing, I think he could, for me, if I've acted a fool and I did the wrong thing, I would have explained it that night. I looked over at Jada, and I saw how hurt it was, and I responded out of that.
And 5,000 people in here laughing at her.
Laughing at her. And I
snapped.
I snapped.
Right.
I snapped.
Now,
and I'm sorry.
Right.
I wouldn't have said, I apologize to the Academy.
Yeah, and all that bull. That's bull.
No, baby, I hate he picked you out.
Yeah. It would have changed the narrative.
It would have changed the narrative. And that's all I'm saying. I'd have gone after him. No, you can't talk about, oh no. But I would have gone after him from the standpoint of making a statement.
Right.
Of saying, and then I want to apologize for all the people I hurt.
Right. Yeah. He could.
I apologize to all the people I have. This kind that we've got to be more responsible for the jokes that we tell.
Right.
We laugh about, I know I got 18 minutes and, I need to shut it down. But, I remember, years ago, we had a little group, and we'd be laughing about something, and then finally somebody came up and told me, said, look, what y'all be laughing about, that's me. And I was like, okay, we're gonna stop this joke.
Right.
We're going to stop this joke. Because I'm thinking I'm joking about somebody else.
Right.
But when it becomes you, then it becomes different. And I think putting it in that context, not about you disrespected me because that's my wife. No, you disrespected her.
Right.
We need to be more responsible. If you didn't know why her hair is short, then don't use that as a joke. You got many things that you can use.
You a comedian.
You're a comedian. You got many other things that you can use. And then it would have been able to put him on where we held him accountable. Now we got people feeling sorry for him and paying all the kind of stuff because he got slapped.
And even if it'd be different if Will Smith went up there, and I'm sorry, but I've been thinking about this and talking about this too. It'd be different if Will Smith went up there, closed fist, hit him smooth on the chin and knocked his ass out.
Right.
You know, he gave him a little slap, but it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Right. Yeah.
He could have hit him with a haymaker.
Or he could have taken him down.
Damn. And so he just, gave him one of them grandmama slaps. Oh, you running off in the mouth, pop.
But I heard somebody else say, because I said, well, he could have gone and done that, and he said, yeah, but also Chris Rock could have done something different.
Oh yeah,
and so I'm glad that it didn't get to that point, to where it just came, got to be
fisticuffs out there.
Fisticuffs, and then of course, everybody, had, I saw one thing on TikTok where they tried to show where he had a pad on his jaw that took all that kind of stuff, and everybody's having a different scenario. But I do think that the event itself and what was it, whether it was staged or not, I would hope that it was not staged, because it was staged. I would have hoped that they would have used it as an opportunity to say that kind of humor,
right,
and the victimization that we have, of women. I know some women, that deal with that,
right,
and I remember when they initially got their hair cut, I'm like, why are you going and getting that, that hair? And I'm going, that's your hairstyle, but I did not take into consideration that it was a medical reason for it. And so, I've since, and hair is one of those things, after that I said, I want to be appropriate with my jokes. I'm going to do some real history, And so, let me just joke about my hair, because I know my own circumstances, and let me, if I can craft a beautiful joke about me, then I ain't got to worry about
nobody else.
Nobody else. All right. Well, I want to thank you for tuning in. I feel almost confident that the responses I will get this week will deal more with the conversation than will deal with the message. But that's what this is all about, and I look forward and hope you will share, because I think what it does do for us is that it does say to us how it is that we have conversations about how we respect one another, how we respond when disrespect has taken place. And when I think of, even in the passage that we had, when Jesus says, leave her alone, of standing up, that people were criticizing her. And Jesus says, you don't understand the relationship we have. Leave her out of this. You might have some problems with me, but leave her out of that. And then that, for me, is kind of the bottom line. Chris Rock had a whole lot of other places that he could have gone, and we would have never had this conversation. But now that we are having this conversation, I think it does say, how do we deal with it, and how do we move forward? So I thank you for spending some time with us, and want you to know you'll be in my prayers, and hope that you will keep us in yours.